Good morning, everybody. It's Marshall from Go Cry in the Walk-In. I'm here today to tell my story of the original pirate, the first pirate that I met. And this guy was, not only was he a pirate, but he was an owner and kind of a douchebag owner. But I first started working at this place. I was 15 years old. I lied about my age and I had fake working papers. In New York, you had to have these little cards that you showed for if you wanted to wash dishes or work anywhere. and so started working there. Like within the first week that I was there, I got there after school, walked in the back door, and as I'm walking up the loading dock to the stairs, I hear screaming and yelling, and I couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on. I knew it was Joe, the owner's voice, but I couldn't figure out who the hell he was yelling at. So I go in through the back door and I'm like, one, I'm scared as shit, but I want to know what the fuck's going on. So I kind of peek around into the main part of the kitchen, and there was the owner, who was old Italian dude. He was probably only about 5'3", and then Joey, who was one of the chefs there, he was this tiny little guy. And this guy, it was funny as hell because this guy, this is in the days when you could smoke in a kitchen, like literally smoke in a kitchen. And he always smoked Lucky Strikes and no filter, no nothing. And he would be sauteing on the line and have this Lucky Strike hanging out of his mouth. And 2/3 of it would be just the ash, just dangling at an arch. And he'd be sauteing away and he'd have this little butt and it was all ash. And you know, you never saw any ash on the floor or anything, so I'm just assuming that shit went in the food. Kind of a gross place. So Joey is standing there, and the owner is screaming at him because Joey had what's kind of runs rampant in our industry, somewhat of a drinking problem. And where this restaurant was, attached to it was a liquor store. And the owner ran the liquor store and the restaurant, and Joey was forever getting caught behind the bar in the morning, grabbing beers, grabbing the liquor, and he'd be shit-faced before lunch even started. So Joe had caught him another time, and so Joe's back there screaming and yelling at him. Joe pulls out a pistol. He's got the pistol and he's swinging it in the air and he goes, "Joey, as God is my witness, you touch another bit of my liquor, I will shoot you fucking dead right here." And like I said, man, I'm 15 years old. I'm like, that motherfucker's getting shot right here, right now. What the fuck do I do? Joe storms off and I fucking silently go to the dish pit. I'm waiting for fucking gunfire to take place. And it gets completely quiet in the kitchen to the point where you can only hear the fans. And I'm just like, what the fuck do I do now? Chef Joey comes around the corner and he's like, he literally acts like nothing happened. And I'm like, fuck, dude, what the fuck just happened? And he goes, that happens 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I literally I worked there for 3 summers, I think, and I seen it happen at least 2 or 3 times where that motherfucker pulled out a gun, whether it be on him or somebody else, and he'd fucking wave that gun around and just, it would be half Italian and half English and just screaming and yelling. And that's the original gangster. This guy was so gangster. This is the part of the story that I'm going to tell spans more than 30 years. Is that when I was a dishwasher there, and he would have us whenever it was slow, we'd be like stocking bottles in the liquor store, and that guy delivered liquor, and he had just bought a brand new delivery van, just a little Dodge minivan, panel van, whatever, and so he had asked me to go get gas in that van. That van had 120 miles on it. It was brand fucking new. So I go down to the store, I get gas, and I'm kind of jerking off. I'm like driving around, at this point, I don't even remember. I just got my driver's license. I probably had only had it like a month or two. And I'm fucking around with the radio, and I'm on this little small street, and I veer off a little bit, and the tire tucks in, and the whole van swings sideways, and I hit a bridge abutment dead center on a van that's less than a week old, has about 120 miles on it. Not 120,000, 120 miles. So I freak out, man. The one lady's driving by. One of the neighbors come out. They're like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I was like, "I don't know what happened. A deer just came across, and I swerved and I hit the bridge." The cop shows up. She was super cool about it. And then I actually rode in the cop car back to the restaurant, which is just a couple miles up the street. So I told them the whole story, and Joe never shut the fuck up about it. Every time he saw me, he was like, "Just don't crash my van. Don't crash my van." It was brand new. They totaled the van, and he got complete replacement on it. But I'm sure it was a pain in the ass, and he probably knew the truth, that I was probably just fucking off, and I totaled a brand new fucking week-old van with 120 miles on it. And so literally 30 years go by, and this is where the pirate part of my story about him comes in, because I never realized how much of a pirate he was until I heard the second half of this story. Is I was back in New York, and I'm a very like nostalgic person by nature. So whenever I go back home, I always go to the restaurants that I worked at when I was living there, and kind of drive around, and near that restaurant, the first restaurant that I worked at, there's this little sub shop, and they truly make the best subs in the world. It's a tiny little rinky-dink place in the middle of nowhere. Like, if you're in Western New York or in Chautauqua County, everybody knows the Hartfield Deli, because they literally make the best sandwiches ever. And so I had stopped there, ordered my sandwich, and went to pay on a card. The lady was like, "We don't take credit cards. There's an ATM at the gas station around the corner." I was like, "What the fuck?" So they're making my sandwiches. I go to the ATM, and I literally had to drive past that bridge abutment that I smashed that brand new van into. And so I go get gas. There was like a whole line at the gas station, so it took me forever to get back. And so when I get back, the lady was like, "Hey man, we didn't start your subs because we didn't think you were coming back because it took so long." So I tell her the story. I was like, "Man, I worked at the Marmar years ago, and I was just kind of rolling past that bridge abutment thinking where I smashed that dude's van." And she goes, "Oh my God, you're the guy." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Well, she's owned that store for 40 years, whatever. And apparently, the owner of the restaurant, we always used to joke that he was kind of a connected man. Take that however you want to. But in the liquor store, behind the counter on the top shelf, he had a violin case. And we always wanted to know what the fuck was in that violin case. We always thought it was a Tommy gun or something like that. You guys know the myth and the urban legend and all that about the violin case. But anyways, always thought he was connected to the mafia somehow. So she goes to tell this story. She was like, "I heard about you crashing that van for about 5 years." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So apparently one of the side rackets that this guy had going on was that he had bought that van to deliver papers. And this guy made more money than, he had a very profitable liquor store. He had a huge restaurant that was packed all the time. And just crazy amounts of money. Had a beautiful, gorgeous house with an indoor pool and everything. And I couldn't figure out why this guy was schlepping papers. Well, basically, with his connections, is that where his restaurant is, it's on Chautauqua Lake, which is this small lake in New York, and all the way around the lake, he controlled distribution of the local paper. So that woman got to see that guy every morning when he delivered papers. This guy owns a restaurant and a fucking liquor store, and he's dropping off papers to all the stores and all that all around the lake because they can't buy from anybody except this dude. So she tells me the story that the day after it happened, he went to drop off papers, the newspapers, and he was just bitching and moaning. And she said that went on every day forever. That this dude bitched about me crashing his van at like 15, 16 years old. And just, like, he was a fucking criminal. And I just thought that was weird to randomly run into this woman and her tell me the story about this guy was fucking, he had a syndicate of newspapers going on. I just thought that was crazy that guy found the time, and would it really be that profitable if that guy's dropping off papers, or who the fuck knows, maybe all those papers dropped off the back of a truck somewhere, somehow, some way, that's how it works in New York, certain places. But that's my story about my original pirate. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, great. Please like, share, subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell. That's great, man. If you did, perfect. If you don't, go cry in the fucking walk-in.